I had my son at 19, and I had a record deal at one point, lost the record deal. My girl at the time had gotten pregnant. Now I'm working a security job, and then I got cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And we gave Dame a beat tape, and on that beat tape was the beat for Can't Knock the Hustle. At the same time, while I was interning at Loud, that record comes out, and I'm like in the mailroom as an intern. Maddie called me in the office, and he was like, bro, don't go to the mailroom anymore. And he was like, you in the A&R department now.
This episode of the Rap Dads Show is brought to you by Washed Dads, the premier brand for fathers and father figures all around the world. And before you say, yo, I ain't washed, well, I ain't either. In true hip-hop form, Washed Dads is redefining the word washed with the acronym We Are Superheroes Every Day. Now, I know you can rock with that. Washed Dads is to be worn all year round, and what better time than with Father's Day approaching to check them out and grab some pieces. As a thank you for being Rap Dad listeners, use the code RAPDADS and get 15% off your next purchase at washeddads.com. The promo code is RAPDADS, RAPDADS, 15% off. Look fly while you're doing the flyest job in the world, being a dad. Welcome to another episode of the Rap Dad Show. We are recording right here at the iconic Algonquin Hotel in New York City. And my guest today is a super producer, a super DJ. Like, he's worked with Big Pun, Mobb Deep, Jay-Z, the list goes on. He's one of the original executioners. Like, the man is a hip-hop royalty. But above all of that, he's a rap dad. Sean C.
What's up, man?
Welcome to the Rap Dad Show, man.
Thanks for having me, man. Yeah. It was early. We were like, I had to even kind of remember, did we do that show?
Yeah.
They said, yeah. And I've seen you.
2017.
Yeah.
We did the show.
And I've seen you. I didn't realize that was the same show when I started seeing it on IG again, and I started following you. And I'm happy to see it happening, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you, man. Again, you're early. You're one of the architects, once again. But I had to bring you back because you gave me some advice that resonated with me so well. And I don't even think at the time I had teenage sons when we had the original episode. But just this week, it's funny that just this week it hit me because I had hit you before the advice hit me to come back on the show. Right. But we'll get into that a little bit later. But I want to just start it off. Tell me about your kids, your family dynamic. You have one son?
I have one son. That's it. I have one son who's over there.
Word.
Yeah. I have one son. I had him when I was 19, and I was, a young boy coming up, and was a single father. Yes. Raised them on my own with help from my mother. I can't negate that because she was a big part of helping me out, but it was never I couldn't go to the tunnel or any of that and just leave him with her. You know what I mean? It was a thing where once I had gotten custody of him, I was young, so I was still living with my mother. She said I had sat and talked to her about it before I got him, and I said, she said, yeah, you can, but I'm not gonna raise him. This your son.
Yes.
So I said I would only help you when you're either, because I was in school as well as DJing and all that stuff. But as long as if you're in school or you're at work, I'll help you out, pick them up or whatever the case is. But besides that, it ain't no put them in grandma's lap.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Understood. Yeah, man. I want to go back though, because I am a firm believer that your fatherhood journey begins with your relationship with your father. So tell us about your relationship with your dad.
It's interesting. My mother and father, they both grew up in Harlem on 145th Street, same block, that kind of knew each other since kids. And when they got older, they got together, they got married, they had me. Then they got divorced when I was maybe 3 or 4. So I don't have any memory of my parents together because I was too young.
Yeah.
And he would pick me up every once in a while. They didn't have like a set schedule, like I'm with him on the weekends or whatever. He had a house in Long Island. He'd come get me, I guess, whenever he had some time or whatever, take me buy toys, and then I would play in, in the yard or whatever. Funny story, I remember this is how long ago it was, like Atari came out, and we went to Toys R Us, and he bought me Atari and all these remote control cars, and I was like, whoa, I was like hype. And then now Sunday night, I'm packing up to go home, packing up the Atari. He was like, whoa, 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 that stays here. That's from when you come here. I was like, I never come here. He's like, I'm barely come here, yo. Like, what? I'm still mad about
Right.
that.
No, clearly.
But yeah, yeah. So, so when I became, I think I want to say either 13 or 16. It was one of those monumental ages. That was when I did not get a call from my father for my birthday. That was the first time I remember. I can't remember the age, but I do remember it was one of those two monumental ages, and he didn't call me for my birthday, and he would always at least call me on my birthday, even if I didn't see him.
Right.
And that was kind of like it hurt me a lot.
Right.
And I didn't really see him too much from then on. Then I had a kid, I had my son at 19, and I really didn't see him until I was 21, and I was really stressed out about just where my life was going, because I had a record deal at one point, lost the record deal. My girl at the time had gotten pregnant. Now I don't have this record deal no more. Now I got a kid, and I got to take care of him. Now I'm working this security job. I was working up at the Cloisters Museum up in Inwood, and I really was just stressed out. Like, my dreams are not going to come to fruition. And now I'm turning 21. Maybe I'll reach out to my father and see if he could help me, give me some guidance as a man, as a man. And he came and picked me up. He lived in Virginia now at the time. I spent the weekend with him, and it was like a terrible week.
Damn.
Only because in hindsight, I understand now. I've understood for a while now. He's passed in 2000, but I understood that he was just trying to step in and be a dad, but we hadn't rebuilt our relationship enough for you to criticize me. So he was just like, you need to go back to school. That music thing is just a fad. It ain't gonna do anything. And then he's correcting my English. He's like, there isn't a word ain't. Don't say ain't. Like, he was just like doing all these things, and I'm like, bro, I don't even really know you.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't say my father was super estranged, but it was just like, I knew who my dad was and whatever, but he wasn't around. And for you don't have the foundation. We don't have the foundation of a relationship that you could criticize me that way.
Right.
And so from 21 till then in 2000, I got a letter from him, and it was a picture of his house in Virginia, and on the back he wrote, "Time builds strong walls. I wish things could have been different." And I'm like, what's going on? So I called him and found out that he was sick, and he was dying of cancer.
Right.
And I flew out that next day. Now it's 2000, so I'm doing well for myself as far as my career's taking off. Pun had just died, and I had worked on Big Pun's albums as an A&R and as a producer, and Pun had just died. So that was like a big thing for me. But this may have been, this was Father's Day, right? Yeah, this was Father's, I think we went out on Father's Day, which is weird that it was Father's Day. So I went out there and brought Sean with me. Sean was like 10 at the time, and he got to see his grandson, and we all hung out. I got to voice everything. I got to tell him how I felt about everything. The same thing I just said to you. Like, I felt like you didn't have the right to judge me, and you told me this, and look what I'm doing now. I make this much money a year. I'm this guy. I would felt good to be able to. And he was like super impressed by it, and impressed with the relationship that I had with my son, because I brought my son, and we all three have the same name. My first name is Delino.
Okay.
My middle name's Sean. and my father's name is Delino William, and my son is Delino Sean. He's a junior, so he would be like, "Oh, the Delinos," and so
Of course.
yeah, and he would like make fun of my son, like, "You ain't no Delino," like, so
Right.
it was like it was a dope weekend, man, and I got to talk to him about what went on between him and my mom,
Wow.
and as a man, being able to kind of see it, because I would only know my mom's side of the
Of course.
story.
Yes. Yes.
And my mother made a point to never really say negative things about my father to me,
Amazing.
like purposely.
Yeah.
But she would say little things every
Right. It
once
was
in a while.
right,
Yeah, it would
of course,
slip
of
out,
course.
but it wasn't, how people like, your dad ain't shit. She
Yes.
never would do that.
That's
That she
amazing.
wouldn't do.
That's
But
beautiful.
yeah, so I really kind of, knowing my mother and hearing some things about my father that my mother would say, I could look at it objectively as a man, like, oh, you was on this and she was on it. Okay, my mother was doing that because of this, because I
Right.
heard you like this, and you know what I mean? And
Yes. You piecing it together.
piecing it together, and then to get to sum it up, so that rebuilt our relationship.
Right.
We talked every day after that when I went home. We would always talk, and then I got really busy, and then I didn't speak to him for a few days, and I'm like, what the hell? And I called, and they got no answer from him, and I found him in the hospital, and I flew back to Virginia that night, and he was dying in the bed, and I got there.
Wow.
When I got there, I watched my father go, oh, he was like, oh, and I was like, yep, you was gonna try to check out. I was like, you was gonna try to check out without telling me. And
Right.
his boy told me, yeah, it was exactly what he was trying to do.
Wow.
And but he looked like he was like surprised. And I was talking to him, and I watched he went from like responding to me, not verbally, but he would like shake his head or whatever, to like just his eyes just looking at me. And he died literally right when I got there. So he died maybe an hour, 2 hours after I got
My
there.
goodness.
Yeah, it's so crazy.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, so we got to rebuild it. I think about my father a lot, though.
Word. What do you think about? Like, when does he come to mind?
My family and my mother is really big on our family staying tight. Like, we have a really, really close family. We know all of our cousins and the history of things and how people are related and who's what, and which I realize is different than most families. Like, we can kind of
Oh, yeah.
know most.
Yeah.
I didn't know that growing up. I thought everybody
right.
knew, like, yo, that's your cousin. How is he your cousin? I
Right,
said,
right,
"Oh,
right.
that's my aunt so and so's brother, so and so, whatever."
Yes.
And so a lot would come up where I would think about my father and ask, and a question that my mother couldn't answer, because it would be something with his family, and they're not as tight as my family, so I'm not able to get those answers about my dad or whatever, and just wanting to have like a conversation with your pops, you know what I mean, as a man,
Yes.
That's
For
I
sure.
do think about him a lot at this age, because now I'm almost the age he was when he died.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yo, so many gems in just you talking about your pop. One thing I have to revisit, for a lot of the fathers who don't have, either they're not physically in the home, and they get to develop that relationship every day. Sometimes they're rebuilding their relationship with their kids, being mindful not to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Not to be, damn, I can't think of the word right now. Entitled.
Mhm.
Because you are the father of that child, the relationship has to reflect fatherhood, parent son, or parent child dynamic. You can't just fly in 5
Yeah.
years later and just be
Yeah,
breaking off.
Right,
That's
right.
not going to be received
Mhm.
well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For some reason, dads seem to feel like, well, I'm your father and I can tell you whatever I want. It's like, but if you haven't put that time in, that doesn't your communication is not going to be received in a way, because I'm
Right.
sure he had all the best intentions in
Yeah.
the world.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that that's super important. Another thing that I definitely feel like we should touch on is, for some reason people feel like fatherhood stops when your child becomes an adult.
Mm.
But I'm 40 plus years old, I talk
Mhm.
to my pop all the time.
Mhm.
And not only that, he'll hit me up when he feels or he's been around or he's hung out with my son. It's like, yo, you need to be keeping an eye on this, or you need to be checking on this, or he said, you know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
fatherhood is a lifelong journey.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And we need to, your relationship dynamic changes over
Mhm.
time. You become less of a provider or an authority or something like that, and maybe it becomes more of a friendship mentor dynamic.
Mhm.
But you're always a parent.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Like
Yeah.
like my son's with me today, and even if it wasn't this, like he's with me all the time. If I'm in the city, I'm like, what you doing or
Right.
whatever. And like if I'm in the studio, come to the studio or let's go get something to eat. We always try to like get dinner,
Right.
at least a couple times a month or once a month at the least. You know what I mean? If
That's amazing.
I don't live in the city anymore, but when I come in, I always hit him up and we always talk. Like he's my best friend pretty
That's
much, When
amazing.
we talk, and the ill thing is like we talk about like it's like you talk to your boy, like regular things.
Right,
You know
right,
what I mean? And he'll ask me advice about stuff.
Right.
But it's in a different dynamic. And I feel like I could also be vulnerable to him and tell him things that, you know what, I don't even really know.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and my son's married. He may ask me marriage advice, and I've said to him, I never got married.
Right.
Like, I can't even really answer that question
Yes.
in that dynamic.
right,
You know what I'm saying? I could say relationship, I can give you the advice from, having relationships,
Love
but
that.
marriage is a different thing.
Right.
And I never took that step, you know?
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, man. No, I'm also a big advocate for us being transparent with our
Yeah.
kids, that when you don't have the answer,
Mhm.
being truthful and saying it, because we're not supposed to be perfect. And
Right.
if we're giving them the image of we know everything,
Mhm.
and there ain't nothing I've never experienced or that I can't answer, then
Mhm.
you're setting them up for them when they become fathers, that they feel like they gotta know
Yeah,
everything.
you gotta know everything.
Not knowing things, and I say this in not only in my fatherhood, but in my career. Knowing what I don't know is almost more important than knowing what I do. Because
Yes.
when I know what I don't know, then I can shore up in that area, or I can
Mhm.
learn, or I can hire someone to come in who's strong in that area that, will support. But if I'm just going to ignore the stuff that
That's the only way you're gonna grow.
that's the
Is
way.
by I used to have and I'm glad you said that, and it's really true more than just fatherhood. In general, you can't I had a big problem with saying that I didn't know something.
Mm,
And now I can't, because I always would feel like, oh, they're gonna look at me like either I'm ignorant or dumb or I should know. You've been around this time and long. But now I kind of take pride in saying I don't know, and asking what the answer is.
yes.
Like I kind of look for those opportunities
Right,
to
right,
say like
right.
I really don't know.
Yeah, man.
You know what I
No,
mean?
absolutely. So, you said you had your son at 19,
Mm-hmm.
and then you got custody of your son.
Mm-hmm.
Take me back to that moment when you were 19 years old, like you were a single dad,
Mm-hmm.
like just even the what drove you to like, look, I got to go get my son. He got to be, I have to have custody.
I mean, just the circumstances, without going into too much detail, like the circumstances caused for that.
Mhm.
It could have went another way, but I made the decision that I felt like this was the best thing for him,
Okay.
and it wasn't it never was like I guess I didn't people growing up. Well, I was 19, so I was still growing up, but when that was happening, people would always give me so much, so many accolades or so much props for like, yo, you're
Right.
really taking it. I can't believe you took your son and that you're raising your son. And I didn't really look at it like that.
I
I was,
love that. Yeah.
you know what I mean? I was just
Yes.
like, well, what was I supposed to
Right.
do? Like, not
Yes.
do, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes, man.
not take care of my son. Like, it never really was even an option to not
Right.
to
I
do
love that.
something else.
Mhm.
So it's hard for me to even kind of respond to that in a way like to pat myself on the back and say, "Oh, I was such a great dad." But yeah, it was a really stressful period of time. I did have a lot of anger at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just decided to like let it go because I was like, it's not really serving me
I love
being
it.
angry.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it's like I just need to do what I gotta do
Right.
because I felt like, like I said, I had these dreams of what I did end up,
Come
reaching some of my
around.
goals. I always I always wanted to be the person that I became, and I never lost track of that. Like from the first time I saw someone DJing, I wanted to be that. I wanted to do that, and I never looked at any other thing
Right.
besides that. Right.
Yeah.
So when we lost our record. We were signed. Fat Man Scoop and I were in a group with my boy Steve D, and we were signed to Teddy Riley when we were teenagers because we all grew up in Harlem, and the deal fell through because Ted was signed. Ted had a partner, Gene Griffin, and
Yes.
they broke that whole thing dissolved, and so all the artists were on their own. So now I don't have a record deal, and literally, I want to say maybe a month or so later is when I find out, oh, my girl's pregnant,
Right.
and I'm like, what am I,
Right.
what
Right.
am I gonna do? I'm working, like I said, I was working, and so I had to go get this job because we weren't making any money doing parties or anything like that, or we didn't have, and it was stressful for years, man. Like I would go to work, come back home, try to make beats, but pick him up from school. If my mother didn't pick him up, I'd pick him up, or however. It was so long, I can't remember all the details, but
Right.
I know that it was stressful because I was trying to be a father as well as still trying to chase my
Yeah.
goal, and then my son had asthma really badly, so he'd be in the hospital a lot. Like, yeah, asthma really, really bad.
Same.
Like he
Same.
had the nebulizer. It was like 2 weeks, like at least 2.5 weeks out the month, he's in the hospital.
Word.
Like for 2.5 weeks, not like you know what I'm saying. Like he's always in the hospital, so it was like it was a lot. And as he got older, he started growing out, and things started to get a little bit better. And then I got cancer
Mm-hmm.
during that same period of time, and I'm like, "What the fuck is going on?" I'm sorry if I can't
No,
curse,
of
but
course.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then I had to like sit down and really kind of take inventory and figure out another plan. And while I couldn't work and I'm home and I started trying to look at it from the what I have opposed to what I didn't have. And it's like, well, now you got time, right? And you're getting I had a job. It was like um the security job, I had disability or whatever, right? So it wasn't my full salary, but I was getting something, right?
Yes.
So you can pay whatever small bills you do have, and you have time sitting come up with a plan. And I said I'll maybe if I intern at a record label, I can get a job because this is what Scoop did during that period of time. So I can get a job, and then I can get beats off to the artist,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll be getting it. It didn't matter what amount of money it was. I was like, I know I'll be making more than I'm making doing the
Right.
security
Right.
job.
Right. Right. Right.
But and even if I was making less, it wouldn't matter because I would be in the mix of
Yes.
what I'm doing. And I told my mother the plan of what I wanted to do, and um, I called Scoop, talked to him about it. He gave me some advice. He called this guy Malachi, who was a street team and A&R assistant at Loud, and he was calling Mal to give me advice.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that Mal was calling me to be like, come down.
Right. Right.
I didn't know what position he had. I just knew he worked at a regular label. When I went down there, it was like he was like an assistant and
Right.
like a street team dude. And he didn't really have the power, but I was like super
Hungry.
aggressive.
Yeah, man.
And he was the door to open because then I found the guy who was the office manager ended up being someone who was in my music business class. And he was like, I got you. Don't worry, you could come in and intern. And then, from there, I was an intern at Loud Records at the same time when, like I told you, we were making beats and everything. Every day, my other partner, whose name's Nobody, and he lived across the street from Dame Dash, and we would be in his house a lot making, we had rappers and we just made music all the time, and we gave Dame a beat tape, and on that beat tape was the beat for Can't Knock the Hustle. So that became Can't Knock the Hustle at the same time while I was interning at Loud. That record comes out and I'm like in the mailroom as an intern, but I would go around to everyone's office every day and ask them, yo, you need something, you need something. So people kind of knew, they would see my face or whatever. But when that record came out, Matty C, who is the head of A&R, him and Scott Free, found out that, who I was. And Matty called me in the office and he was like, yo, he's like, I heard you worked on the Jay-Z record. I was like, yeah. And he said, I heard that you started like the X-Men, the Executioners. I was like, yeah. And Rob Tulo, who used to A&R at Atlantic, he had offered myself and Nobody and our crew, unless it was a crew of MCs, and we were like trying to get deals. All this was happening all through this time. And he offered us a single deal, but we didn't take it. But I think Rob was the one who told him who I was. He's like, Rob told me he offered you some deal for your groups. I was like, he said, bro, don't go to the mailroom anymore. And he's like, you're in the A&R department now. So that's how I ended up hitting the A&R department. And then I just went from there, executed the plan. So the story really was like, it showed me, because I still had cancer and I'm still going through chemo.
My goodness.
During this period of time. And I told him that after a while I divulged the information. But it was never a thing that I was worried about. I figured, I was like, oh, I got cancer because I was supposed to be doing this. Like I wasn't supposed to be working security and doing, like, I was supposed to be, this was the path I was supposed to be on, and I needed to sit down and figure it out.
Right.
And once I did, everything just started.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where did that, like, how, like, during the time where most people would be like depressed, down, thinking about death. I'm a single dad. I got this kid in this world that I gotta, be responsible for, but I got cancer. Like, how did you come to the realization, oh, wait, no, this is a blessing in disguise because it's going to.
After I went through all of the things that you just said. Like, that's what I'm saying. I did go through that as just human. I was like, my life, what the hell is happening?
Right.
And then after you go through that, then you can't be like that forever. I gotta figure it out. And that's like I said, I figured out what I had opposed to what I don't have. Like, what do I have that I can use? And I just went that path, and then it all worked out. And I would bring Sean to the office all the time, and like,
how old was he at this point?
So he would have been 5 or 6, something like that.
So he didn't even know where he was.
Yeah, not really. I mean, I think a lot of things he grew up with that were like normal to him.
Right.
Probably weren't normal to him. Like, he'd be in the studio all the time. He grew up like Dead Prez knows him, and Raekwon, and all the Loud artists. Pun's kids and his kids used to be in the studio together boxing, or be at the house together boxing, and so yeah, it was I remember a Dead Prez session. It's so crazy. I remember, DP's vegetarians, right? And vegan, and they were smoking weed, but they smoke weed, right? And Sean was eating a cinnamon bun, I think, right? And they were like, I think they said something like, it's not good for you or whatever. And he was like, oh, okay. And then, or he was eating something, what he was eating. And then on the ride home, he asked me, he was like, Dad, I don't understand though how, he was old enough at this point, he might have been 10 or whatever. He said, I don't understand how they don't eat chicken or won't eat a cinnamon bun, but they smoke weed.
Right.
He was like, I don't understand that. And I told Stick and them that, and it was like, that's a smart kid.
Yeah, for real.
He was like, he's right. It does it is contradictory in certain ways, you know what I mean? But yeah, he's done skits and been on records. Like original I'm a African on the Dead Fresh first album, he was at the end saying, I'm an African, Dad.
Wow.
Yeah. So he was around it all the time. Yeah.
That's wild, man. And I think that's important to know too. Like teaching your kids critical thinking, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Like they say, common sense is the rarest thing on the planet right now.
And
Because
sense not common. Huh?
not at all. Like people are just out here like either believing what they read on the internet or like, you know, they form their opinions in some way, shape, or form. But Sean was like, telling me this,
Yeah.
doing this,
Yeah.
he like give me advice. Like, yeah, he put it all together. It was like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do me.
Yeah.
You
But
know what
I don't know if he made a decision. I don't know if he had the answer. He was just trying to figure it out. He was just like,
Right.
I don't understand though. If you don't eat this,
Right.
but that's not good for you either. Like, and nobody explained, like, there was like a, you know, no one talked about the medicinal
Right. No, we didn't know any of those things.
weed or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they was not smoking really good weed at that time either.
Right.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So
Yes.
yeah, it was
Man.
it was interesting.
That's wild. So tell me about how fatherhood impacted your drive in terms of, you know, your career. Was that kind of the driving force for you to like, I have to be successful? Was it Sean necessarily, or was it always your dreams?
I think it was, like I said, it was always something that I wanted to do, and I never had a I mean, I still have there's still a lot of things that I want to do. There's still a lot more money that I could have and make, you know what I mean?
Right.
But my drive has always been more about my dream and my happiness than it has been about like, oh, I want to be the richest, or I want to be it was just kind of like what success is relative, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And yeah, during that time when I had cancer, I thought like, shit, what happens if I die? I won't reach my son. I won't reach my goal and my son. Like, what about my son?
Yes.
So I thought about that a lot, and which would make me, you know, which would give me the drive to kind of like push through certain things,
Right.
and and that, and when he had gotten a lot older, because I've told him this. We talked about this because I was so young. I made mistakes, which is what you do when you're young because you don't know. And I just like he'll just do everything that I did. Like, you know, I could have put him in, maybe I should have moved away and did this, or maybe I should have did these things, but I just did what I knew. I only, you know, you only knew certain things. And that is the difference, I think, when you're a young father. The good thing about being a young father is that you're young enough to relate to him in certain ways, and you got energy that you can use, and you can, you know, play ball with him, you know, you have that energy. And then when he gets older, you're still young enough to relate to him. But the downside of being a young father is you don't have any experience. So you're really learning at the same time.
Yes.
Your kid is learning. You're a little ahead of him, of course, but you're learning as you go. And when you're an older father, usually you're a lot more financially stable, and you have more life experience, so that you could, you know, you could give the mental jewels as well as financially set them up in a place where they, you know,
for sure.
When you see, like, you understand money a little, hopefully you understand
Right.
a little bit more, and you know, you're like, I don't need to just buy them Jordans.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, so yeah.
Yeah, man. But I think that you know, I want to circle back on your happiness as a father, your happiness being important to you. I feel like so often, you know, with dads, it's all about sacrifice. It's like, you know, we have to stop doing what we're doing, or we're always constantly kind of back burner, you know, to the needs of the family. You know what I'm saying? Like, what was some of the ways that you like balanced because also being in the industry is very time consuming. Like
Yeah.
you're always on. It's no 9 to 5. That joint is all day, every day,
Yeah, yeah.
depending. So how did you balance like being a present dad, spending a lot of time with Sean, but at the same time, being real career oriented?
In the situations that I could, I just would bring him with me.
Mm.
Of course, if we're going out to a club or whatever, I
Right,
can't
right,
take him
right.
with me, and sometimes that's work too, but
Mhm.
I would bring him with me as much as I could, and it came from us always being together, um, because I had my mother to help me out, but, sometimes it was just like, "I'll just bring him with me and just figure it out," you
Right.
know? So that was where I guess that's the balance when it comes to the, when it comes to time, but, when it comes to, like, a sacrifice of, like, doing without so that my son could have I don't know, like I said, I mean, I think I was on autopilot, man,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? So a lot of it was just like I was just going and it was a while ago too, so he was younger, so I can't remember all of the details, but I do know that I did the best that I could,
Right.
and I know that I had him with me. That's the thing that everybody always would say that it's like you always got your son with you.
Right, right.
So that's how I balanced the time. I just took him with me.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's
Right.
really what it is. And I was fortunate enough, and I thank the universe and God for that. That I was able to financially do for him during the period of time when I needed to,
Mhm.
because my career started taking off at the time when I needed it to.
Right.
And and he needed to go to college, and I was able to have the money for college, and so I'm thankful for
Yes,
that
for
part of it.
sure.
So I didn't really have I can't say that I was in a place besides for like early when he was really young where I was struggling and trying to figure out what I'm going to do with myself and my kid. And in that instance, my mother was very, very influential in that situation because one, she was already nervous her son's got cancer. So I might have to take care of my grandson
Mhm.
too. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
yeah.
So
Word.
yeah.
Alright, I wanna get to this, because I'm hoping you got more gems. You gave me a gem last time we had a conversation that, you know, I wanna say 5, 6, 7 years later,
Mhm.
it it worked. You told me, when you're raising a teenager,
Mhm.
never take anything they say personally.
Yeah, yeah.
That was the gem you gave me, and I
Mhm.
think you went into, like, this whole thing about how, like, their brain ain't fully developed, like, they
Mhm.
don't know what they saying half the time, like,
Right.
it's just full of hormones and genes and all
Mhm,
types of
mhm,
stuff going on,
mhm.
so don't ever take anything that they say personally,
Mhm.
and I got into it with my son this week,
Mhm.
and I was like, "Yo, what am I doing, yo?
Yeah.
Sean already told me not to take this
Oh, that's dope.
personally,
That's dope.
so
That's
let
dope.
me chill."
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, it's real.
what are some other, gems you could share?
Well, I wanna elaborate on that a little bit
Please.
and tell you the reason why I
Okay.
learned that. And that goes to what I was saying about experience, right?
Mhm.
So if I had another kid, then I would know that now,
Right,
right?
right,
You know what I mean?
right.
But at the time, I remember one time he came home like past his curfew or whatever, and I'm like, "What time did I tell you to come home?" And he was like, I don't know, whatever. Like he's just looking at me like crazy, like who said like the crazy,
Right, right,
like,
right.
and I always thought because we had such a unique relationship
Right,
that I would never have to deal with
right,
my son like being disrespectful to
right,
me because he knows and
right.
he's got, you know what I mean? But a teenager is just a teenager, and that's they gonna do regardless. They gonna do what they gonna. A teenager gonna teenage,
That's a
right?
super
Yeah, you
fact.
know what I mean. But I really internalized it, and I got really mad, and I got, and a couple of those whatever teenage situations that happened. I would get upset about it,
Mm.
and it wasn't ever any real big thing. It's just like
Right,
past
just
the
typical
curfew,
teenage
whatever
stuff. Right.
stuff that you do. And I remember talking to I don't know why. I was talking to Tony Yayo one time,
Okay.
I was at, it might have been at G Unit offices for something or whatever, and it's not like we have a crazy relationship, but we knew each other then for some reason, and we were talking about, and I used to go to the studio and be upset about things, and I think I was in the G Unit office and I was telling Tony Yale, and he was like, "Man, when I was 15, 14, I was selling crack, man." Like he was looking at me like he was like, "Yeah, you mad?" Yeah. He was like, "I was selling crack, man. Like what are you talking about?" You know what I mean? So that helped me put
I
it.
love that. First world problem.
Yeah, help me. But I'm like, you're not supposed to sell crack, so right. But then I had to look at it like,
Yeah.
this is just what it is, and that's a jewel that I still, like I said, I still tell people that, like, yo,
Word.
don't
Yes, bro. I tell people
internalize
that.
it, because because when he got older, he was able to, he called me when he went to college and was like, "Dad, I just want to thank you for everything that you did. And I understand sometimes what I had put you through, and I see my other guys up here and their father, or whatever the case is, and I realized if you weren't there, I would have definitely," he's like, "there's certain things that were happening, and I may do this, but I ain't gonna do that." Right? He's like, "'cause I would see your face."
That's amazing,
So
man.
I guess the other jewel I would say is, like, don't think that your words are being, even if they're acting like they don't hear you,
Right.
they hear you.
That's
And so it's still important for you to still say the
Yes.
stiff
Don't
stuff
give
that
up.
you- yeah, don't give up.
Because
Still
if he's talking to a brick wall, sometimes.
Yeah, you
At
think
least
you are,
think,
but
yeah.
they hear it. They just act
Word.
like they don't hear you.
Word.
Mhm.
No, that's another. That's
Mhm.
yeah, because I do battle with that. I'm like, yo, why am I talking to this kid? He
Mm.
not listening to me. So that definitely I can employ right
Mhm.
now. Not that I'm ever going to give up. Because like when my son, and of course I only really get into it with my one of the three,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
whenever we get into it, um I love it. It annoys the shit out of him, but I love to do it. I'll be like, yo, I'll call one of my other kids to bring me a chair, bring me some water. I got time. Let's go.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
combo.
go ahead, yeah.
And he's like, oh my God. But he knows, like, I'm gonna sit there all day and I just until I run out of breath, we're gonna have a combo. But
Yeah.
it's it may at times get loud,
Mhm.
but it never gets disrespectful. It never gets like contentious. It's
Mhm.
always like, and throughout the whole time, I'm like, yo, I love you so much that I'm taking my time
Right.
to sit down and have this conversation. This is so important to me that I get this through to you. I'm going to take my time. Like I tell him, that, over and over and over again. And we do have a great relationship. And, I know he loves me, even though that kid gonna do whatever.
Yeah.
know
When
he
you're
want his
when you're a
own.
kid, yeah.
But he's a great kid. It's, to your point, like, my sons could be doing a lot of other stuff that be going on around here in the world. So if I'm mad at you about cleaning your room and not doing the dishes, like, I really gotta take that L sometimes. So just keep it moving, bro. Word. No, that's great advice, man.
The 10 Dad Commandments.
That's
Okay,
right.
all
That's
right.
right.
This is the book right here, Fatherhood Through the Lens of Hip Hop.
I made a lot of mistakes. Thank you for this.
Right. Thank
You
you.
know what I'm saying? We needed it. Like I always tell people, it don't come with a rule book. I'm sure there's something in there that a new father can learn.
I'm new in the game. That's why I needed your book, man.
I worked at Atlantic Records. The biggest impression that time left on me was your fatherhood.
Right.
So I wrote this book this year, The 10 Dad Commandments. You were one of the big catalysts
Wow.
of
Wow.
that. You're in a couple of the chapters.
Wow.
Real quick, I want to refer to something that you do have in the book. It's called being a ride or die dad. And we always think of that as adults. The way I've applied that to my children is meeting them where they are.
All right, so for the first time ever on Rap Dads, we got a Rap Dad and son combo. This is dope. I'm excited. I'm glad that you were hanging out with Sean today. And I'm glad you agreed to be on camera.
Of course.
You already were dressed. Did you know you was coming on camera?
Try to stay fly as possible.
Always. I love that. I love that, man. But I wanna hear from you about, we're having a conversation about some of the gems that we try to, pour into our children. And it's at times it feels like it's not penetrating. It doesn't kind of register. What do you remember? What are some of the advice that your dad gave you that that you recall?
I would say younger would be always to be yourself and like be a leader. I never was like big on like following the crowd. I think I always kind of had like leader personality,
Okay.
and I think my father knew that. I think I would say later on in years, his biggest thing is like keep your word, be a leader, be yourself, and just don't do anything that's not you.
Right.
I think
I love
and
that.
that kind of stayed with me a lot of the times. Like he was talking earlier about certain things that I would do, but I would know I would have his voice in the back of my head. Like,
Yes.
I'll be a daredevil with certain things, but I know my pops wouldn't feel this if I came home or if he found this out that I was doing this
Right.
outside, and they like, yo, what you doing out there, man? Like,
Right.
you out there following the crowd, you out there just doing whatever. So I think that was like the main thing, like be yourself, be a leader, keep your word.
What do you remember, if anything, about like the early times when you were like around Loud or around the studios? Like any of those, is there like one memory that kind of jumps out?
Mad memories.
Okay.
I probably have way more memories of him because I was in real time with it.
Right.
I always tell him my favorite thing was always like I knew if he took me to the studio, it's Chinese food time. I knew we going to the studio, we getting Chinese food, and we gonna get some fire Chinese food, and I'm gonna be good.
Food budget, yeah. That was everybody had a food budget back then.
That's a fact, right?
Yeah, and then being in the office, I remember being in the office a lot. I remember being in the studio late a lot sometimes, and we'll still come home, and then he'll take me to school in the morning, maybe a few hours later.
Word.
So yeah.
Sheesh. How did any of those memories or any of those experiences inform like who you are now as an adult? Did any of that kind of translate?
Yeah, I would think because I was still, my environment is still an environment. I grew up in Harlem, and I think that I always had a different outlook on life. Like I seen more than the average kid, so like I had a different perspective than just like the four corners that people grow up on, and I kind of knew it was more out there.
That's so important, bro. Yes.
Yeah, like it was definitely more out there. There's like possibility to do like other cool things that people just see on TV.
Right.
Like I kind of seen it in real time, so it's like you can actually really do that. Sometimes it's like a fantasy.
Yes, it's tangible when it's in your eyes and not on the screen.
It's not
absolutely, bro. That's crazy. So I totally get that. Like I feel like exposure is everything. When you can expose your kid to more than what they usually see. Like my dad tells me all the time, the reason that he saw and knew more was because his dad had a landscaping business, and they would leave the hood and go out and mow like these amazing, immaculate lawns. And he was like, that was my time to be like, oh wait, people live like this. So I don't have to live the way that I only ever seen. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
That's clutch, man. But I also want to have a conversation about, the car accident that you were in.
Okay.
And how that, first of all, how did you find out about his accident?
It's ill. I was in LA working, and Groovy Lou's daughter was in the car.
Wow.
She was driving, and she was drunk because they're friends.
Right.
So Groovy Lou's a stylist. I don't know if everybody.
Yeah, Groovy Lou is the guy.
Yeah. So I've known Groovy Lou, and I was in LA, and I was actually with Groovy Lou, and I got in a call about the car accident, and Groove got the same call at the same time as well. We were together, and then literally maybe like 2 hours later, Dame Dash called me and was like, yo, your son was in the car. I was like, yeah, I know. And that was it. What was dope about that when we talk about moving, because I had this thing about when I mentioned earlier about like things that you would have done different and things you didn't know from experience. And I probably would have. I always look back like I should have moved him out of Harlem, right? Because of the situation, like how he just said, he'll be around certain situations.
Right.
Because of me, he's seen other things, but I always think like I should have took my money and did that first, like earlier, right?
Right.
But the upside of that situation is that like
The community.
of Dame's OG Daniel's son and Sean are best friends, right? So of course, I mean Dante wasn't in the car, but they all
Right.
a crew.
Right.
So he knew Sean got in a car accident. His pops knew, so his pops called Dame and was like, "Yo, call Sean and tell him in case he don't know or whatever." You know what I mean? So yeah, and then Groovy Lou, and then like it's like this, that's rap dads.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that's all fathers, right? That's all. It wasn't no mothers calling each other. That's all fathers calling each other. You know what I mean?
That's amazing, man.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me without getting into crazy detail about the accident, and more importantly, like, what happened to you and your recovery afterwards.
So me and my wife and my boy and his girl, we went out one night drinking, and it's crazy because her name is B, Goovy's daughter name is B. She was the only one that wasn't drinking that night. So we drinking, we go, she's driving us home. So we going down Park Avenue, and we all drunk, so we all messing with her in the car because she's driving like super, super slow. So we all drunk, we messing with her at the car. So like she's stopping at a yellow light. Like she stops at the yellow light for it to turn red.
Right.
So my boy's like, you driving like Miss Daisy, like you killing me right now. And we all ready to go home. So we messing around. So we driving and then going through. So the next light, she kind of floors it. So we go through the light and the ambulance truck T-bones us. So crashes us into the Metro North. It like throws us into like this other railing.
My God.
But to be honest with you, and my wife she's going to have a different story, but it's like, I got in the accident and I felt like I was fine. Like I was like cool. Like I was like, whatever. We got up. I seen the car was all crazy. My boy, he was the only one that was good. He kind of like Spider-Man'd out the car, trying to drag me out the car. And I'm like, yo, bro, we good. Like, relax. But we wasn't good. Like I seen on his face, like we weren't good.
Oh, snap.
But
so it was just like adrenaline in your
body. Adrenaline was just rushing.
Right.
Was just rushing. And then I remember we was going to Atlantic City the next day. Me and my wife was going to Atlantic City the next day. And they took us in the ambulance truck. And I was like, I'm not going in the ambulance truck. I'm good. Like I got to go to Atlantic City tomorrow. I'm good. I'll be all right. Like, I probably got a little bump. I'm good. And I remember they like, you're not good. You need to lay down on the thing. And they strapped me down. And as soon as they strapped me down, I remember my adrenaline kind of went away. And my whole body went into shock. I remember like I couldn't move. And then I started panicking. I was like, oh, snap, I can't really feel my body. And then, to be honest with you, like I went to the hospital maybe a few days, recovered. And then I recovered probably in a few months after that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Work.
That his neck was broken. He didn't say it. he didn't mention that.
My ribs was broken. My neck was broken.
Wait a minute. How you bury that?
Yeah. My ribs was broken. My neck was broken. But
broken?
Yeah. My wife, her face was broken. She had to get like surgery on her face. I don't know. I might be downplaying it.
Yeah, because I know that when they told me when I was in LA, like he has a broken. I don't think they told me right away. But
did they tell you when you were out there how severe it was, or were they trying to tape? Like
they were trying to
calm it down,
but they were like, you need to get back here.
Right. Okay.
And and then I remember, I don't know who sent me the picture of him. He had the neck brace on him. Yeah. And I found out that his neck was broken. Yeah.
I will tell you, like, when Dante came to the hospital, like I was still pretty calm, but I knew I was messed up. But when my best friend came, and when he came, he started like bawling, crying. And I never even seen him cry before. And like I said, I thought I was good up until that point. I'm like, I must be fucked up. I see run, yo, what the hell? And you know,
Sheesh.
got a little crazy, but I was good.
Good, thank God. So like what was going through your mind at that point? Like when you finally got there and you were like, you know, at his bedside.
Oh man, it was, you know, that is he gonna be paralyzed or any of that kind of stuff? And they were like, no, he'll be all right. He has to do physical therapy, but he should be able to. You know, they don't want to sell you like they definitely feel that way, but the other thing is him being in hospitals all the time. I could kind of read and understand what doctors are saying without them saying it, because they can't give you like, they don't want to give you like super false hope,
Right.
and then it's bad, but you could kind of tell by the way they say things.
They deliver, bedside manner. For sure. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I'm an asthma kid. Yeah, I was in the hospital all the time.
Yeah,
Like the nurses knew, you know what I'm saying? It was me, my cousin Shiana, and my cousin Harry. We all had asthma. My grandfather is super asthmatic. We all got asthma. We'd all be in the hospital together at the same time. Every time the weather changed, we were in the hospital.
Yeah, exactly. My birthday is when the weather changes.
When's your birthday?
March 28th.
Okay. Yep.
So as soon as the weather changed, I'm guaranteed to be in.
Yeah, bro. That was my life growing up, bro. Crazy. I definitely realized that. I mean, I definitely could resonate with that. But talk about your relationship now, your dynamic. Like when do you call your dad for dad advice, and when do you just call him to say what's up? Like, what's your relationship like?
I think it's always blended in, mixed into one. Like I said, that's my best friend. Like, to be honest, like that's as a man, like that's really the definition of a man that I know. You know, and I always say this, like even when I talk to like my young boys or my boys' kids or whatever, it's like my father always was who he said he was. And I think that was like the biggest thing. Like even when I was coming up, when all kids grow up, it's like people could tell you things, but if they not who they say they are, it's like going in one ear and out the other.
Yes.
And I think that I had a great example because it was like everything he said, he did. It wasn't like he told me certain things and then he was just like goofing off doing something else. Or he wasn't present to come at my basketball games, or like, yeah, he had a busy schedule, but I remember him at every basketball game. Like,
Crazy.
taking me to the basketball game, taking me home from the basketball game. Then he go do what he got to do, or I roll with him to that. So I think that was the biggest thing, and like him being a producer, I would listen more too because it was like he's obviously right. Like he's obviously like doing something right that makes sense.
Right. There's fruit there. There's proof. You can see it.
It's proof of concept.
Yeah.
It's like always proof of concept. So I think that you know, I always call him for just man advice now. Like, you know, what should I do in this situation? Or, you know, I don't even know how to troubleshoot through this. Like, what should I be doing? You know, I still call him for marriage advice regardless, because it's like men deal with women regardless.
Right.
You know, so it's
absolutely.
Like, how can you help me? Should I talk to her now? Should I not talk to her?
Right.
Should I bring it up? Should I not bring it up?
Right.
So, you know, things like that.
As a son, give some advice to fathers out there on how they can foster and develop a good relationship, because it comes up often on the show, but in the comments, it always is debated. The relationship, the friendship that is a parent's son or a father-child dynamic. Some dads are like, I'm not your dad. I'm your dad. I'm not your friend. So, you know, y'all out here raising these kids because y'all need a friend, and now you got a friend and you ain't never been their parent. And then there's some parents out there that's like, my relationship as a friend with my child alleviates a lot of disciplinary things and a lot of you know, sneaking around because we have that different bond. What are some of the things that, you know, that your dad did, or some of the things that you know would help a father have that type of relationship?
I think that It's a little bit of both. It's like not a one answer fits all. I think that for sure my father was a no-nonsense dad. Like, I knew that if I messed up, there's repercussions for that.
Word. I love that.
There's never gonna be not a repercussion.
Right.
Like, I had times where I was on punishment every other weekend. Like, yo, bro, you're bugging out, or the grades ain't right now. Get it right, because I was always a smart kid. So if I fell below average, he would know. Like, you gotta get that right. So you get it right, he's gonna be in the crib. We're gonna be in the house. But I think that as a man, like, whatever your personality is, it is. So like, my father was cool. So yeah, it's repercussions, but he's cool. So I know, like, we're gonna be cool regardless. Like, that's my friend because he has a cool personality.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, he'll set the law, but you know, if I'm not in trouble or whatever the case may be, we could be friends because he's cool.
Right.
You know, like,
I love that, because we got to stop there and talk about that, because if your approach always with your child is the disciplinarian, then you're always looked at as like the disciplinarian. But if you are constantly in that state of, like, you know, just being yourself, being normal, being regular, and then you have to become a disciplinarian, then your child knows that you're going to revert back to being your cool self. I feel like that's important. That's an important thing.
It's a great, I think it's just a balance. Like, you definitely can't be all friends, because kids see weakness. Once you see weakness, it's like, I could get away with it, I'll get away with it.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, I think it's just being able to relate when you're young. At this age now, he's a grown man, so like I was saying earlier, I could be vulnerable in certain ways, and just like I have that conversation with him all the time. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do about this. So I'm trying to figure this out. Like, I talk to him like he'll give me advice as well. You know what I mean? Like, I talk to him like my friend. But when he's younger, that's not how you you know what I mean? That's not the relationship that you have. But when you get to a certain point, then it's a different
That's a great point.
My mother would always say that. She's like, I'm not your friend. My mother, she was really, that was like her mantra. Like, I am not your friend. And you know how they say, I ain't one of your little friends in the street.
One of your little friends.
Exactly. So
That's a scary
that mantra was instilled in me, but you learn from your parents, and some things you take, and some things you was like, I think you might have been a little wrong about that in some ways.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
I know what is another good thing to finish that too. Another big thing he did was he did things that I wanted to do.
Oh.
So like, all birthdays I had sleepovers, right? So all my boys come over and we go to like this spot called Sports World. Like, it's like an arcade or whatever the case may be. So it's like, every single birthday though, like every single birthday, or like even if it wasn't a birthday, like, and my crew was together, he'd take me to do something like that I want to do. So it's like, I observed that. It's like, that's like the cool thing. Is like, all right, we'd go to the arcade. He's taking me to basketball practice. He's taking me to basketball games. So it's like, he's doing things that I want to do. And it's like, all right, cool. Right. So then we get to grow that relationship. And then, I mean, I'm spoiled in this way where he has a cool job. So it's like, I get to do that too.
Right.
And it's like, all right, so now I'm around other cool things too. It's like, that just help our relationship nourish you.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying?
No,
To let you forgot about paintball.
Oh, paintball. Paintball.
That was a dope trick.
Your word.
Paintball, yeah.
No, that's important, man. Definitely doing things that your kid wants to do, that not necessarily your thing, but showing them that, like, yo, I want to do this because that's something that you're into.
You know what's interesting too is the things that, you only learn from your experience that you had as a kid. So I would do a lot of the stuff that I had sleepovers when I was a kid. Okay. My mother always, like, every birthday, all my friends came and so I did the same thing for him, right? Like, birthdays was a big deal for me.
That's dope.
But then, like, toy, like when it came to like Christmas and toys, like I loved racetracks.
Okay.
As a kid, every year I got a brand new AFX.
I know you have to go.
I had the brand new AFX racetrack, and I loved them. I used to take the cars apart, try to rebuild them, make them do stuff that they wasn't supposed to. So I bought him. I was doing the same thing with him, but he wasn't into it at all.
Right.
And I would be in the playing with his. I'm like, Sean, look, the car does. And he'd be like, he'll play with it for a little while.
Word.
And then it took me like 4 or 5 Christmases to be like, he ain't into it. Though. Like he's not. You are wasting your money because he'll play with it for that one day with me, and then it just. And I'd be like, yo, we gotta set it up. We gotta set it up.
Crazy. I remember one Christmas when you bought this dope racetrack. It was crazy fire. It took mad long to set up though. And I was like, I was already ready to go.
Over it, right?
I went to sleep and he set it up though. And I remember like waking up and he's playing with it. I'm like, I'm good. I don't know.
Yo. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh man. Last thing I want to talk about, you're a married man.
Yeah.
Your dad never got married.
Mm-hmm.
They always say like, marriage is something that you see and that, you kind of know that that's the journey that you want to go down, that's the road you want to go down. What made you, say marriage is for me after seeing, your dad never kind of took that trip?
I mean, he never got married, but a long period of time he had
long relationship.
Yeah, long relationship.
I always had long relationships.
Okay.
So it was similar, yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of like he was married without the ring, but
Right. Okay.
he always in a long relationship, so I kind of seen that. Yeah, it was stability there.
Right.
Then I met my wife in high school. She was like my high school sweetheart.
Okay. Yeah.
So we've been together for years now at this point. So I kind of just knew it was at a point where it's like we gotta do the big thing now.
Right. Clearly, this ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, this is not going nowhere.
Wow.
It's hard to find someone that's loyal and you could trust. You know what I'm saying? So, she's that person for me, and I was like, it's time to make that decision.
That's
I
dope.
remember I remember the day he texted me. He texted me a picture of the ring. No, or you text me and was like, yo, I gotta tell you something or whatever. And then you screenshot it. You took a picture of the ring and sent a picture of the ring. I was like, what's this? He's like, I'm gonna ask Jazz to marry me. Yeah. And I was like, word? Call me. I was like, what? Y'all say, seriously? Really? He's like, yeah. Because they got back together. I don't know if
Yeah.
after the accident, right?
Right. Yeah. So the accident it's funny, is the accident was our first day, like getting back together.
Oh wow.
We had broke up for a while. And the accident was like, I had hit her. I remember I called and I was like, you want to just go get some drinks? And she was like, cool. We had planned to go to Atlantic City that weekend because our birthdays is all back to back. So we was going to Atlantic City, just like some extra like vibes or whatever.
Right.
But we haven't linked and got drinks in probably 3 years.
Oh wow.
So that was like our first time getting back together. So the accident kind of brung us together because once we was out, then we was both out of work and we both was just laid up, and then it kind of like rekindled everything.
And I thought it was, one thing that I know, my long relationships and your high school sweetheart sometimes might not work out because y'all only been with each other.
Right.
But I thought it was the perfect scenario because they had broken up for a few years. They were
Right.
together for a long time, then they broke up for a few years, so they got to go do them,
Mm-hmm.
and then they got back together. And I was like, yeah, it makes sense. When you figure I went and did me, and it's you.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So it was a perfect scenario. So I've known his wife since she was 15 years
That's
old.
amazing.
Yeah, 14, 15.
It's another dope story too, even with me asking her to marry me. I remember I called and I was like, yo, how I'm gonna do this though? I want to do this like in the craziest, dopest way. So I remember I called and I was like, I'm gonna do a video. So I got all her family and her friends to do like a video of like, happy birthday, I love you, say something sentimental. And I was like, I need something like a bang at the end of this. And we both kind of came up with, we can hit Fab up, because I know she a big fan of Fab.
Oh, dope.
And hit Fab up, and we're gonna put at the end of the video, yo, Sean got something to say to you. and when she turned around, I'm gonna have a ring.
Hey.
Yeah, so he put that together for me. Like, that was the icing on the cake right there. Like, that was super fire.
Yeah.
Super fire.
Yeah, he got that on video.
Yeah, that was super fire.
They were all screaming like, "Ah!" They thought he was just wishing her happy birthday.
right.
Yeah, happy birthday. And he was like, turn around. And then he turned around and Sean was on his knee with the ring.
Fire, yeah.
Go, shout out to Fab. Good looking on
Word.
the
Fab, shout out Fab.
Good looking on it.
Sealed that deal.
Yeah.
That's amazing, man. Well, yo, thank you all so much, man, for making this episode so special. The first time ever.
Fire.
I love the energy. I love the dynamic, man.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm looking at this.
He got hair though.